Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Daily Defender. Great to have everybody with us again. Glad to be with you guys. Appreciate you tuning in again. A very warm welcome to all the new subscribers. Had a really nice kind of a group of new subscribers come in, so we really appreciate that. Thanks for all that. Welcome back to all of our existing subscribers and viewers and all of that. So continue to do that. Please continue to share the channel with your network and hit the like button. Some very nice comments again, going back to one of the CZ videos and some other Smith & Wesson videos again. So really appreciate the comments. Really love interacting with you guys. Thought we'd do something maybe not different, but just kind of simple and probably a relatively short video, just to describe the Smith & Wesson revolver screw designations. You guys, as you're maybe getting into the revolvers or know about the kind of the screw designations with the platforms within Smith & Wesson, it's another way to describe or catalog Smith & Wesson revolvers in terms of era of production and things like that. So it's just another interesting topic with Smith & Wesson revolvers, and I thought I'd kind of quickly cover it. Generally speaking, the Smith & Wesson revolvers, if we're talking about screw designations, are referred to as either a 5-screw, a 4-screw, or a 3-screw. There's a bug screw version as well, I think, on some of the air weights, but we're not going to go kind of down that rabbit hole. We're going to stick with the three main screw designations, and we'll kind of just do that in a quick deep dive. We're going to do a visual representation of that because we have enough platforms here with I and J frames and N frames to talk enough about that. So we'll do some visual descriptions and visual observations of these screw designations. So without further ado, let's get into the deep dive on that. So as I was just kind of talking about in the intro, I thought it would be fun to go over the screw designations for the Smith & Wesson revolvers. I find it a fun and fascinating topic. It's confusing at times. We'll try to talk through that, maybe clear a little bit of that up. But just another fun part of Smith & Wesson revolvers, and you don't have to be a massive collector or an expert collector to kind of have fun with it and understand it. So I just thought it would be kind of fun if we went through that and just ran through these screw designations. So I guess maybe, and generally, like I said in the intro, we're generally talking about three designations: a 5-screw, a 4-screw, or a 3-screw designation. And there was this bug screw or 6th screw, but it's really kind of off the beaten path, so I don't think we need to go there. We'll stick with the three main categories. And I think probably the best place to start is with 5-screw. Chronologically, it works as well, because generally speaking, 5 screws are referred to from about the early 1900s, right at the turn of the century, to the mid 50s. So over about a 50-year span, Smith & Wesson uses this 5-screw configuration. And there's, we'll talk through some of the rule breaks and variations, but we've got a nice hand ejector here, a clear and safe firearm. This is a early 20s 38 Smith & Wesson Regulation Police on an I frame, so it's a smaller frame than the J frame, or J frame Magnum, as that 41-1 happens to be. But this is a good representation of a 5-screw gun, and I'll talk through it very quickly. Basically, my understanding, the screw count is 1, 2, 3, 4 is the trigger guard screw, which basically secures the cylinder stop and spring. And then the 5th screw is actually the larger screw up here on the top of the side plate. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. And that denotes a 5-screw gun over this general period of time, early 1900s to mid 50s, this 50-year span. So that's a 5-screw gun. So to get that established, then we move to a 4-screw gun. And actually, we're going to stick with this because the 4-screw guns start in the mid 1950s, of course, and then end in the early 60s. These 4-screw guns really only go for 5 or 6 years, depending on how you count in Smith & Wesson time, depending on what they had in parts inventory and which guns they were building, etc. But basically, it the fifth screw was eliminated, so this top screw. So really 4-screw guns during this very short period, mid-50s to early 60s, is a 1, 2, 3, and the trigger guard screw stays. That's a 4-screw gun as I understand it, with the fifth screw being eliminated. But again, over a very short period of time. Now the exceptions of the rule, or the exceptions to the rule, start to creep in here, because there were a series of hand ejectors that were made late 1800s into the very early part of 1900s. Again, I don't know the exact year span, probably less than 10, that were 4-screw guns. They weren't 5-screw guns that generally you would expect to be in that time frame. So that's the first rule break. The second rule break on the 4-screw guns is represented here with an end frame, and this is a clear and safe firearm as well. But since I've got one of the grips off here, we won't kind of spin it around. But this is a 27-9. It's a classic series, so relatively new, modern Smith & Wesson revolver. It is on an end frame, and you can easily see we have a 4-screw gun, not in the traditional sense of 1, 2, 3, 4, but 1, 2, 3, 4 this way in a modern firearm. And I had read and heard that N frames and K frames didn't always follow this chronological order of 5-screw and 4-screw guns, etc., kind of like we just showed with the I frame with the regulation police. So here we have an exception to the rule of a 4-screw gun, but not in the traditional sense. So again, very interesting. I always kind of find this Smith & Wesson's rule breaking kind of fascinating. And then we finally get to 3-screw guns, and 3-screw guns are basically the guns that are being produced from again the early 60s to today. So when the 4-screw guns stop in 61 or 62, again, it's never a clean break, but generally speaking, early 60s, Smith & Wesson starts making 3-screw guns. And I wanted to actually use this 40-1 because it's a really nice representation of a 3-screw gun, because you can actually see the first screw, right? 1, 2, 3. Because generally speaking, the stock hides the first screw, and I'll show you that in a second. But again, this is just a very nice representation given how this gun is laid out with the frame, hammerless safety design, and the way the stock comes up, that you can see the first of the 3 screws. Generally speaking, you see something more akin to this, and this is a clear and safe firearm. This is a 65-2 from the late 70s, maybe right around 1980. This is more traditional of what you'll see if you're looking at firearms. That first screw of the 3-screw designation is hidden by the stock. So again, I think it gets a little confusing. People, if you're new to Smith & Wesson revolvers and you're hearing some of these terms and somebody's talking about a 3-screw gun, and you can obviously visually only see 2, you're like, wait a minute, where is this 3rd screw, right? Well, it's almost always going to be hidden by the stock, just because of the way the stock comes up and the way the frame comes down, minus this 10-1, which I said, it's kind of the reason I brought it out. So it kind of gives you that visual representation. So that's really the screw designation for Smith & Wesson revolvers, from basically when hand ejectors were first started to today, from this 5-screw through the 4-screw with these different exceptions, finally to a 3-screw. So hopefully that was helpful and fun. It's like I said, I find it always these little nuances of Smith & Wesson fascinating, and I think it just adds to the fun part of the Smith & Wesson history. And if you're collecting, it just adds another little fun tidbit that you become aware of. So thanks again for joining for the short video, and we'll see you all again very, very soon on the Daily Defender.